Okay, Ags2, here's your study guide for the final test, starting in on number 1. Based on the set of triangles or parallel lines, create a proportion to solve and find the missing values. Okay, so you can see number 1's been done for you, and some steps are given. So hopefully that was a little bit helpful. Split the triangle into two similar triangles. Okay. So, you can see on number 1, and one's like this, it appears like there's only one triangle, but in all actuality there are two. So there's the one big one that you can see, and then there's also this one right here. So when you have this situation, the smaller one is similar to the bigger one, which means they're the same shape and their sides are proportional. Remember, if two things are proportional, this one isn't super clear, but like this square has one on each side. Well, square's not necessarily the best example. Let me just do rectangles because they're easy and you might be able to see what I mean. So let's say that this was 2 and this was 4 and this was 6 and this was 12. These would be proportional because it's times 3, right? The bigger one is 3 times as big. And the proportion that we would write would be 2 over 6, because 2 lines up with 6, and that would be equal to 4 over 12, because 4 lines up with 12. That's all we're doing with these triangles. They're the same shape, therefore they must be proportional. So let's make the question mark x, which is what we did here, and this is our big triangle. So these two triangles are similar because they have two pairs of congruent angles by the AA. So 10 over 16 is equal to x over 12. Okay, so here's where those numbers come from. They're going 10 over 16. Those are parts from the big triangle, is equal to x, which is our question mark, over 12. Okay, now that's not the, I didn't do this one, but this is not the proportion that I would have written. What I would do is do it more like I did the rectangle problem. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to look at is this triangle right here, the little one, and I'm going to go x over whatever x matches up with in the largest triangle. What number does it match up with in the largest triangle? It's kind of like the base, right? It matches up with 10. And that's going to be equal to, okay, so now I'm going to grab 12 from the smaller triangle. And what does 12 match up to in the big triangle? Well, it's the side. Here's the side of the little triangle. What's the side of the big triangle? It's the whole thing. So 12 over 16. And then I cross multiply, and 12 times 10 is 120, and 16 times x is 16x, and we still get the same thing when we divide by 16. It's still 120 divided by 16, which is 7.5. So if this way over here made sense, that's great. I personally like this way, because when I do it this way, you can see I have corresponding parts from the small triangle on the top over the corresponding parts of the big triangle on the bottom. Let's do it again in number 2. So for number 2, we have the same situation, two similar triangles. So I know I'm going to set up our proportion, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to have the small matching parts on the top and the big matching parts on the bottom. So I'm going to take a part of the small triangle, 7. And what does 7 match up to in the big triangle? Well, 7's the side, right? What's the side of the big triangle? It's this whole thing, which is 7 plus 5, which is 12. And that's going to be equal to, so let's grab another part of the small triangle, which is 9. And that's going to be equal to, okay, so we have this. So what does 9 match up to in the big triangle? 9 matches up to this whole long side here. What is the distance from here to here? It's 9 plus x. See, 9, and x would make the whole thing. Now this one looks a little more complicated, but we can still solve it. So I would cross multiply, and I would go 12 times 9, and I would get 108 is equal to 7 times 9 plus x. Okay, that's how that would look. We have to make parentheses because you're multiplying it by the whole thing. And then 7 times 9, distributive property, 7 times x. And then I would take away 63 from both sides. And 108 minus 63 is 45, right? No. I'm not even sure. I think it is, but I don't want to mess up the whole problem here or anything. So if I go 108 and I take away 63, I do get 45, which is equal to 7x. And then when I divide both sides by 7, I see the answer is 45 divided by 7, which is about 6.4. Okay, so that is how number 2 works. And 3 is going to work just the same way, right? 3, not a lot of difference. Okay, so for 3, let me erase this work here. Maybe pause it and try it on your own. You're lining up the little triangle with the whole big one. So again, I'm going to do small triangle on top, and I'm going to do it over the big triangle. So what's a small part of the big triangle? 5, right? I could have started with 5 or 8. What does 5 match up with in the big triangle? It matches up with the question mark. And then I go back to the little triangle and I grab 8. And what's 8 match up to in the big triangle? A lot of people put 12, but remember, the big triangle, the whole side, is the distance between those two dots, which is 20. And then you cross multiply. 5 times 20 is 100, and then divide both sides by 8. And 100 divided by 8 is 12.5. So x is equal to 12.5 in that one. Okay, very good. Now we're getting on to the ones with parallel lines, okay? So let's try to follow the steps that were done for us here. So we can see that this is the situation that we have here. And you're, again, matching up parts that kind of match. So see this 6 plus x, okay? It matches up with 6, and see this part here, which is x minus 2 plus 4, it matches up with 4, okay? So if you can't see that, here is, right here is x minus 2 plus 4, okay? Which is actually just x plus 2, because when you go negative 2 plus 4, you get 2, and that's where this comes from here. So that whole distance is proportional to this little distance. I'll do it in color so you can see. And then the other one, this one, the whole distance is equal to the smaller distance as well. So now that I've color-coded it, I'm going to rewrite this because it's a little small, but it says 6 plus x over 6, and it says x plus 2 over 4. So you'll notice the 6 plus x, it comes from, it's the pink labeled part, okay? It's like the whole, this one's the bigger part, okay? And then the two pink sections are on top, and then you can see that the green sections are on the bottom. So again, this x plus 2 right here might be a little confusing, but remember that x plus 2 is this whole distance from here to here, which is x, and then negative 2 plus 4 is 2. So then if we cross multiply, you can see the work for that right here, okay? Number 5 is another triangle problem. So I'm going to go x. Let's do the big triangle on top here and the small one on the bottom here. You can go ahead and try this on your own if you want to. but x matches up with what in the small triangle? And then the big triangle, I have the whole side, and whoa, what happened? And then the whole side is 50, right? Because 30 plus 20, and that's equal to what in the small triangle? Or not equal to, but corresponding to 20. And then I would cross multiply and solve, and I'll let you guys get that one. All right? Okay, let's do another one like number 6, and then I'll probably stop video number 1 right here. Okay? So, I'm going to label again in pink and green. So we know that the little part here is proportional to the whole thing. And same thing over here, that the little part is proportional to the entire thing. So I'm going to have pink on the top of my proportion, and that's going to be over green. Here, I'll make it green, over green here. So let's do that. My pink section is, I'll just do it all in black, is 2.5 over, now what does 2.5 match up with in the green one? The whole distance, which is 2.5 plus 7.5, which is 10. And that's going to be equal to 3, which is from the pink section, over the whole green one, which is 3 plus what? 3 plus x. Okay, and we would cross multiply, and 10 times 3 is equal to 2.5 times 3 plus x. And I use my distributive property, and I go 3 times 2.5, and I go 2.5 times x. And then I subtract 7.5 from both sides. And I get this, and I go 22.5 divided by 2.5, which is 9. So it's